Traveling with ADHD and autism, I tend to plan everything out pretty well, and days with no plans are rare, but I found myself in just that situation on a recent trip to San Francisco. I had already been down to the wharf and done a lot of the touristy things. I saw the bridge, I even rode all the cable cars, so I needed to find something. Then I remembered the California State Railroad Museum was just in Sacramento. Not having a car and relying on public transit, I was a little worried, so imagine my surprise when I saw it was walking distance from the Sacramento Amtrak station. I did what any logical person would do with that information. I took a bus to the train station, purchased a ticket, and waited on the platform for the next train to arrive, just so I could go see more trains. Can you tell I like trains? It didn't take long for ours to show up on the platform, so we climbed aboard and found a seat. Seats on this train are not assigned, being as it's more of a commuter train. I was really surprised with how nice it was for a commuter train though. The seats were comfortable, spacious, and clean. There were even some with tables. We'll take a closer look in a second. These bi-level cars were inspired by the Superliners, although the lower level is much different. There were plenty of room for bikes, a nice bathroom, and plenty of seating down here too. But I think we'll stick to the upstairs. Better views and whatnot. After leaving the station, I realized I haven't had anything to eat yet. I was so excited that I was actually going to the museum that's been on my bucket list for a while that I forgot to grab something. Luckily, the Capitol Corridor route actually has a cafe car similar to the routes in the Northeast. There were plenty of open seats and even a few booths available as well. The menu offered hot and cold options. I went for the sausage, egg, and cheese muffin, and it was pretty good. Not going to be winning any awards, but breakfast with a view like this? One of the many reasons I love to take the train. Back at our seat, the inner city views faded into countryside. This train had a pretty good mix of all the scenery that you would expect out of California. Speaking of our seat, why don't we take a look at it? Seats on this train are in a 2x2 configuration, with some having 4-person tables. They're split between forward and rear facing. Luggage areas are provided near the ends of the cars or near the stairwells. Overhead storage is provided as well. There's enough space for most backpacks, but the doors are pretty small, so can't really fit too many things in. Legroom is pretty adequate, and there's a footrest for those of us that are a little bit shorter. The tray tables are pretty nice size in case you decide to get some work done or bring your food back to your seat. I never did quite figure out what this thing was supposed to be. Be a napkin holder? I don't know. Above you, you get 2 reading lights. The table seating is also very spacious. As we pull out of Davis, one of the original Southern Pacific stations, we get ready to arrive in Sacramento and see what we came here for. We cross the Sacramento River and we can see the museum come into view right along the water. We pull into the station and get off the train. We take the shockingly long walk from the platform to the station. It wasn't always like that. You can actually still see where the original platforms used to be, much closer to the actual station. After a quick walk to the old waterfront, we finally make it to the California State Railroad Museum, and oh boy are there some amazing things inside, so let's head in. As soon as you walk in, you're greeted by the Governor Stanford, built in 1862, then taken apart and shipped by boat to San Francisco, reassembled in 1863. It worked for the next 30 years in this area until it was retired and saved in 1895. Walking into the main hall, we pass by some historic passenger cars, including one that's currently under restoration. The Railroad Museum is constantly working on its pieces, and even have some that rotate out. Sonoma is one of my favorite engines here. The classic 440 wheel arrangement, otherwise known as an American, is just so classic and elegant. It is an amazing juxtaposition though. Sonoma, one of the smallest locomotives in the collection, is placed right next to one of the largest, the famous SP Cab Forward number 4294. This behemoth of a locomotive was one of the most powerful that SP had, and its unique backwards design was to ensure that the engineer and fireman could see and breathe in the many long tunnels that the Southern Pacific Railroad had. Climbing into the cab and sitting in the engineer seat, you can see just how much more visibility you had compared to a regular steam locomotive. This museum has a lot of amazing historical pieces, like right next to the cab forward is V&T number 13. This beautiful locomotive was delivered in 1873 and was thrown right into service as the railroad had so many things to move, but not enough engines to move them. Locomotives like this with its ornate paint and beautiful craftsmanship were the pride of the railroad. The mirrors above and all around this locomotive really give you a unique view of it that's hard to get anywhere else. There's a lot more than just locomotives here too. There's plenty of examples of some pretty cool rolling stock, like Great Northern number 42 over here. It's an RPO, or a Railroad Post Office. Number 42 is one of 6 built in 1950 for the Great Northern, and it operated on the Empire Builder between Chicago and Tacoma, Washington. Mail was picked up, sorted, and dropped off throughout the route, all by postal workers in this special car. When the U.S. Postal Service decided to end all of its mail contracts in 1967, this car was put into storage until it was donated to the museum. On the other side of the roundhouse are 2 of my personal favorites, the sleeping car and dining car. These display what it was really like to travel back in the day. You had berths where it was kind of like coach during the day, but with fold-down beds at night. There was only a curtain for privacy though, not like today on Amtrak where your private rooms are a little bit more private. Then you had the bedrooms where there was a door and a lot more privacy. This was so exclusive back in the day and one of the nicest accommodations that you could get on the train. The dining car, however, was the real star of the show. Railroads used to pride themselves on their meal service, and for many, it was the highlight of the trip. A full onboard kitchen was used to create fine dining meals, and they were then served on fine china in the dining car. They have multiple displays showing what the table sets looked like for different railroads across the nation. From coffee mugs and saucers to butter dishes, salad bowls, and gravy boats, and everything in between. Dining on the rails truly used to be a 5-star experience. A bit of a long cry from what we have today. Heading upstairs, you get a bird's eye view of some of the equipment, as well as finding one of the hidden trains in the rafters. This early narrow gauge interpretation of a train consist shows what something back in the day would have looked like. Nevada Shortline No. 1 was built in 1879 for the Hobart Mills Company and sold to the Nevada Shortline in 1913, where it served for 4 years. In 1918, the line was heavily damaged by floods and abandoned, but now it sits here for everybody to see. Now, on top of all the real trains, there's also a lot of model trains. When you head upstairs, you'll find plenty of them. Fortunately, they were doing some repairs on the layout when I arrived, so we couldn't see this one run. back on the other side of the upstairs was quite the collection of HO scale model trains, and many that showed famous named passenger trains with their average looking consist. There are also many static, non-running model dioramas showing different scenes of railroading in model form. The attention to detail on these is simply unparalleled. Heading back downstairs, I do have to share my favorite two engines though. The first is V&T Dayton. This locomotive was actually built right here in Sacramento by the Central Pacific shops in 1873. It made history to be the first one to operate on the branch between Carson City and Minden, Nevada. Outside of its time on the original railroad, it's even a movie star. Paramount Pictures bought this locomotive in 1937 and featured it in several films including The Harvey Girls, Young Tom Edison, and even Duel in the Sun. After its movie career and being featured in the centennial of the Golden Spike, it was donated to the museum here in 1982. Then of course there's the true oddball, the CP Huntington. It was built in 1863 for the Central Pacific and then sold to the Southern Pacific just a few years later in 1871 as their first locomotive. Its single drive axle makes it rather unique and also gives it quite a strange look. It isn't without its fame though. If it looks familiar, that's because many smaller museums and theme parks use a replica of this locomotive for train rides around their grounds. They typically have a diesel engine to power it, but it's disguised as a steam engine. If real operating trains is what you crave, you can always pop outside to the Sacramento Southern Railway. Operating just outside the museum, they're right up against the waterfront and offer scenic train ride. Make sure to look them up to find their most current schedule. They also have some larger equipment on display outside, like the Santa Fe 5021, a 410-2 wheel arrangement locomotive, and 2925 hiding against the shops. The crew were nice enough to allow me back here with permission. Massive steam locomotives like this aren't always preserved, so it's really nice to see some of them sticking around. During my visit, they were running their Polar Express trains with their Amtrak F40PH and an old SP tunnel motor. It's nice to see these locomotives running. This one was recently restored by the crew here back to operating condition. This trip to Sacramento really was a good one, getting to see not only everything the museum had to offer, but a running F40 Amtrak locomotive. Who could have asked for a better day? For all my neurodivergent friends, it can get a little loud, especially when there are school groups in the museum, but it is an amazing place to go and full of great exhibits. There is plenty of information to keep your mind occupied. There are some quiet spots to hide throughout, so if you do need some time to decompress free of stimulation if you do get overstimulated, there's a few areas for you. The waterfront was really nice and it wasn't too busy at all. The Sacramento Southern is right there, and getting to look at all the trains and even see them move was very calming if you have the traintism like I do. Overall, this experience was 10 out of 10. I cannot recommend it enough. But it was time to say goodbye and head back towards San Francisco to the hotel. I really hope you enjoyed today's adventure and maybe even found some of it helpful. And as always, I really can't wait to see you in the next one.